Hello, my name is Rain and welcome to my channel where I discuss Fantasy Formula 1. Today's video is not going to be a very long one. Actually, I say that now, but knowing myself, I know that I can yap on about this for about 30 minutes. Don't worry, I'm going to try to keep it relatively short. Basically, if you've been living under a rock, DOOHAN has been replaced by COLAPINTO. We kind of knew that this was just a matter of when, not if, and it seems that it's happened after 6 races, heading into the Imola Romagna Grand Prix. I'm not going to try and say the entire name. No, I'm not Formula Fantasy Hub Rob. He can do it. I can't. Despite my inability to say the entire Imola GP name correctly, we're going to discuss COLAPINTO in F1 Fantasy, right? There are a million videos out there talking about whether this was the correct or the incorrect decision, whether DOOHAN should be given more time, whether Liam Lawson should be given more time. You know, that's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss what this means for F1 Fantasy. And there are a few things this means, right? First of all, if you have Jack DOOHAN in your team, you have to sell him. Now, if you don't know why, essentially when a driver becomes inactive, either because they're out of the sport entirely, like in Jack DOOHAN's case, or even when they switch teams, like with the Red Bull boys earlier this season, their asset becomes inactive, and inactive assets score -20, basically a DNF penalty every single race. So they are an auto sell. The reason for this is because last year there was an exploit you could do where you could keep Logan Sargent because he was by far the cheapest asset in the game. So you could keep Logan Sargent, who in that case the inactive driver just scored 0. So you had a Logan Sargent asset who would never decrease in price and who would never get any DNF penalties and who would never do anything wrong to your team, but just getting 0 every week, and having him at such a low price allowed you to get some more expensive assets in there. And just in general, if you could remove one of your cheap drivers and just say this driver gets 0 every single race, removing their risk for getting -20s, that was a massive hack. So I'm happy that they removed it. It's unfortunate that the penalty for sticking with someone like a Jack DOOHAN for a single race is catastrophic, right? -20 is huge, and obviously we cannot have that. So if you have Jack DOOHAN, you have to sell him. Now, at the time of recording this is just my early thoughts for what COLAPINTO and F1 Fantasy means. I'm going to be doing a race week preview video like I've done a couple times this season for some of the other races when I've had the time. Sort of talking about the weekend general talking points leading up to it, not like specifically for my team. And in that video, I hopefully by then they will have put COLAPINTO in the game and removed Jack DOOHAN, so I can actually talk about it in greater detail. So this is a bit of speculation, but I think it's important to talk about this now because we need to have this in mind, because COLAPINTO in F1 Fantasy is a very, very interesting prospect, and we need to sort of consider him as one of our options already. Maybe not for Imola immediately, maybe for Imola immediately, but definitely for the foreseeable future. So why? Well, first of all, Jack DOOHAN is 4.5 million, which is the floor, meaning he cannot decrease in price. And if we suspect that they do like they did with the Red Bull drivers of just switching the prices, or switching the assets rather, that would mean that COLAPINTO would come in at 4.5 million, which is an absolute steal. I mean, I would even consider owning Jack DOOHAN at 4.5 million. Now, I personally prefer Bortoleto over Jack DOOHAN at 4.5 million because DOOHAN has been a bit crash prone so far this season. Obviously, Jack DOOHAN is gone, so I don't even know why I'm discussing that anymore. But if you look into my team selection video earlier this week, that was my reasoning for considering Bortoleto over Jack DOOHAN. But COLAPINTO, sure, he's crash prone, but last year when he came in, he was one of the best drivers for positions gained on the field, and I mean that's what we want in F1 Fantasy, right? I mean, Oliver Berman this season has been an absolute positions gained and overtake machine. Magnussen was that last season as well, and COLAPINTO was really good for the time he was in the game. So Franco COLAPINTO is definitely someone I'm really interested in that Alpine to see how he can perform, how he can do, even if he is crash prone, right? We have to consider the upside sometimes with assets and not just the downside. At 4.5 million, he's such a good option to include for a couple of reasons. One, he can't decrease in price, obviously, which makes him safe that even if he was to get a DNF, you're not going to lose budget on him. And I mean, we've seen so far with Alonso DNFs, with all these DNFs, how quickly assets fall in price. I mean, Sainz started the season at like 13 million and it's now 9.5. That's a lot of budget loss if you started with Sainz at the beginning of the season and kept him all the way through. So starting at 4.5, if Colapinto comes in at 4.5, would be incredible. The second thing with Colapinto is that because he doesn't really have any baggage, and what I mean by that is that the price change algorithm calculates based on a 3-race average. And similarly to how it's calculated at the start of the season, is that the algorithm just assumes that there are 2 imaginary races where Colapinto has raced where he got 0 points. So he's going to come into this with 0 points, 0 points. Now, that's not great for the first race in Imola. He's not going to be very likely to increase in price. Again, if he starts at 4.5 million, it doesn't matter what Colapinto starts, what Colapinto's starting price is. If Colapinto starts the game at 8 million, it doesn't matter. Those first 2 imaginary races that he's been a part of, according to the algorithm, are going to say he scored 0 in the first 2. Meaning it's going to be very difficult for him to increase in price in the first race. But say he scores at, 5 or 6 points, nothing crazy in Imola, a 0 plus a 6-pointer, and if he's on a low price point, that's definitely someone who's looking likely for a price increase, even after such a low overtake track like Monaco. And with a lot of other assets being very unlikely to increase after so many DNFs in Miami, and also, again, Monaco being such a low-scoring race overall, low overtake track, someone like a Colapinto being one that actually has the potential to rise in price could be very, very big for our teams, especially, again, at that price point. And the last thing to consider is, the double 4.5 million strategy, and this is something that you can already do with the Jack DOOHAN asset, obviously. But it's obviously way more enticing if you have someone who actually races, because you can't just stick Jack DOOHAN in there and pretend everything is fine. Now, I'm going to reiterate, I don't think this is an option for me, at least in Imola. And the reason for that is because Yuki Tsunoda, which is who I'm going to discuss here, is very likely to decrease in price after Imola. But after Imola, if he just doesn't DNF, he looks very likely to increase in Monaco. And if he can just get that qualifying under wraps, I know, we're doubting the Red Bull pace at the moment, but you have to look at it a bit further. Look at Monaco. The back markers don't score points, and if Yuki Tsunoda could just, reach a Q3 finish in Monaco and finish in a Q3, finish in the points in Monaco, that could be like the most amount of points we get that weekend for an asset that isn't one of the top 7 drivers. So getting someone like a Yuki Tsunoda in for Monaco is very, very exciting for someone who's not on a limitless strategy. So how this works is that, imagine Colapinto comes in at 4.5 million, doesn't increase in price, stays at 4.5 million after Imola. Bortoleto stays at 4.5 million because obviously, he DNF'd, there's no way he's going to increase in price. And then we have Isaac Hadjar, who's the second lowest here. Doesn't really matter. Everyone has Isaac Hadjar, really, so it doesn't matter if he increases or decreases in price. And I can actually already afford this with my budget, just with a 0.1 million margin. So obviously, if something goes terribly wrong with the team I have in Imola, maybe I will not be able to afford this, but hopefully I can be able to afford this in Monaco. And actually, if Colapinto comes in at 4.5 million, I can already lock in, if I'm not using my Limitless, this will be my team in Monaco. It just feels too good to be true, right? You kind of have to go for a team like this, hope that Yuki Tsunoda can stick it a P8 or something similar. The other consideration would be to go for someone like an Alex Albon. Williams have been really good, but Williams have been really good in for the top speed. They're not really known for their slow speed corners necessarily. So we'll see how good Williams look in Monaco. Again, Alex Albon could definitely be the option instead of a Yuki Tsunoda. You want to try and go for, whoever's going to finish P8 in Monaco. But if Red Bull looks decent and whatever, there's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes here. I think this team looks really, really strong. Really, really strong. And the more Yuki Tsunoda comes to grip with that car, with that difficult Red Bull car, this could be something to go for. By the way, the budget you would need to do something like this is currently 110 million exactly, right? Because I had 0.1 million in the bank, which I think is very attainable. I think a lot of people are on, around the 110 million mark. If you're lower, that's completely fine. You just gotta ignore Yuki Tsunoda, do exactly what I did, but with, Alex Albon. You can probably afford that at like 107.5 million or something like that, right? 107.6. So even on a lower budget, you can kind of afford that kind of build, but just, toss Alex Albon in there, which obviously, could be better than Yuki Tsunoda in Monaco. I'm not saying that Yuki Tsunoda is the must pick for Monaco. I'm just saying that it's one of the options I am considering. And it's sort of the reason, the main reason why I wanted to make this video, because sure, like, we can talk about Colapinto being good as an individual asset, but having a 4.5 million asset that's actually, allows us to start upgrading that second driver finally, could be massive going into the season. And also with Yuki Tsunoda still being a B tier asset and increasing a lot in price if he can avoid DNFs for a bit, I mean, that's really, really good. I mean, once his DNF in Saudi Arabia is gone, the 33-pointer in Miami is looking likely to carry him through this very, very difficult run of races, right? I mean, both Imola and Monaco, low scoring, low overtake tracks. And then after that, people, these drivers are going to sit with that baggage, sit with those two as their average score, once we get to Barcelona and then Canada. That could really bring down prices. And if Yuki Tsunoda can increase in price at least over the course of Monaco and Barcelona, maybe then decrease in Canada, that looks really, really good. I'm super down to hold Yuki Tsunoda for those two races and then load him off in Canada if he looks likely to decrease there. I'm always looking for that 0.6 increase upside alongside a driver that I think can actually bring in points. So a lot of things to consider there. Let's briefly talk about what it would mean if he's not 4.5 million. I think that it just kind of becomes, another asset. I think the main appeal for Colapinto right now would be if he came in at that 4.5 million. I'm not saying he wouldn't be an option. Obviously, like, if he scores a decent point haul in Imola, I'm very likely to get him into Monaco, even if it wouldn't include a Yuki Tsunoda type build. But like, I wouldn't be able to afford the Yuki Tsunoda build if Jack Doohan didn't exist, right? Maybe Fernando Alonso drops in price, like, another 0.6 million, and I want to get him in. But I feel like Fernando Alonso is just cursed now to never score points this season and finish the championship and lost. Realistically, what would be a reasonable price for him? I think somewhere around 6 million. I think Pierre Gasly right now is on the verge of dropping in price additionally. And then we have Liam Lawson, Nico Hulkenberg around that 6 million mark. I think Colapinto coming in at 6 million would be fair. So, I'm not going to complain if they don't drop it at 4.5 million. It's just not something I'm looking to get into immediately. It's just another asset alongside, like, the Liam Lawsons, the Alonsos, kind of like what's in my team right now. It just gives me another option to pick, depending on results. So that's it for now. That's all I wanted to discuss. Let me know your thoughts on Colapinto and F1 Fantasy below. If you made it this far, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. 70% of people that watch my videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so you might think you're subscribed because you keep getting my video in your home feed, but actually subscribing helps a lot. That's how YouTube knows that you want to see this content. And I know it's annoying to hear I know it's really annoying to hear YouTubers talk about this all the time, but it actually really does help a lot. And you can obviously just unsubscribe after a week if you get annoyed seeing my videos in your feed. So please consider subscribing if you haven't. Like the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on Monday or Tuesday or whenever they actually drop Colapinto in game for a more in-depth discussion on the Imola weekend as a whole, the limitless potentials and stuff like that, and whatever my final transfers end up being. Hopefully can get a sneaky little final thoughts video out heading into Imola. And then, of course, deadline stream is back on Saturday afternoon leading up to the qualifying. Do not miss that. Subscribe so you don't miss that. I've said subscribe like 14 times now, so if you haven't, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'll see you in the next one. Good night. Oh, also, it's my birthday, so if you made it this far, say happy birthday in the comments. Thank you. Bye.